Technology that was designed to help us get through the pandemic seemed exciting at the time and new and fresh, but there's growing evidence that it did more harm than good. We're going to explore those issues in today's episode of Today in Tech. Hi, everybody. I'm Keith Shaw with Today in Tech, and we're going to talk about the pandemic. And I know it's kind of like, again, the pandemic, but there's a bunch of stories that came out that really sort of gel into this idea of pandemic technology doing a little bit more harm than good. Joining me to discuss this is my partner in crime behind the camera. It's Chris. Hello, Chris.
Hey, how's it going? This is going to be a good one.
Yeah. We're going to do sort of some articles and react to some stuff. And I want to get some things off my chest in terms of some frustrations that I felt during the pandemic. So maybe this is more of a therapy session for me, but there is some news that we wanted to talk about. This came out last week. It was a New York Times article. If you want to bring that one up, students lost 1/3 of a school year to the pandemic. And again, this wasn't necessarily blaming the technology, but they said that learning delays and regressions, basically the kids lost about 1/3 of what they normally would do. This analysis, basically the findings suggest that the challenges of remote learning, coupled with other stressors that plagued children and families throughout the pandemic, were not rectified when school doors reopened. And they're saying that a lot of kids are still behind, especially in math. I think most of it, now again, I've got 3 kids and they all went remote during the pandemic. And so there were a lot of school districts that went completely remote during the early parts of the pandemic. Later on, a lot of them started to reopen and sort of integrate. There were a lot of but a lot of the reopenings included, you're going to have to wear a mask all day. And, so for the 2020 to 2021 school year, we put our kids in a virtual learning classroom, virtual school. They had that available in Massachusetts. And so we enrolled all 3 kids in a school. And again, we thought we were doing the right thing. And they had a flexible kind of hybrid program where you didn't have to sit in a Zoom meeting and you didn't have to do a Zoom call because, the early experiments with Zoom and kids my kids were just exhausted and didn't want to participate in those types of sessions. So we said, all right, this learning platform, this school does this program called Edgenuity, where you get to log on and you basically watch PowerPoint presentations and videos. And then they give you the lesson. And then at the end of each of the lessons, you take a quiz. Now, we didn't really know a lot about this platform when we signed up for it and when we signed up for these types of programs. It turns out that there was a quiz in every subject every day. And if you had 4 or 5 subjects, it was watch a video, take a quiz. Watch a video, take a quiz. And then they had tests, which were longer. And it turns out that a lot of the tests didn't even match the content for what was being produced. And then we discovered that there was an error. There were a bunch of errors because a lot of these videos were made in 2011, 2012. And now, so this is now 10 years later and they haven't updated the videos. Like in my son's American history class, for example, they were still saying that Barack Obama was the president and it hadn't updated it since then. So, I made a video, actually. This is 8 seconds, so you can bring this up, Chris, this Edgenuity one. So this was in one of my daughter's class. It was a science class, and they were talking about weight and gravity and what the difference is. And, so most of these, again, this is basic PowerPoint here. You had the teacher would be in the video in the upper left, upper right corner, and you'd have the photo there, and basically bullet points was trying to teach you stuff. But I had to go over this a couple of times and say, did she actually say what she just said? So go ahead and play this and see if you can spot the error.
This is a photo of Buzz Aldrin, who landed on the moon with Neil Armstrong in 1972.
It sounds about right until you realize that they didn't land on the moon in 1972. The U.S. did land on the moon in 72, but the first moon landing was 1969. Unless I'm in an alternate universe, Chris.
Yeah, no, that seemed off. I mean, I am super rusty on my history, but all we had to do was just look it up.
Right. Yeah, I definitely know it was 1969, unless it's one of those Mandela effect things where I did shift and we suddenly are living in a universe where they landed on the moon in 1972. I pointed this out to the teachers of this online school. And they're like, well, that's the platform. They have to fix it. So I don't even know if that's been fixed yet in terms of anybody that still might be learning it. School districts flocked to Edgenuity and just were, because that's the only thing that was available to them. And, you know, the company that did this is making a ton of money, or they did make a lot of money. I think a lot of school districts went back to, you know, not remote learning. But there are still probably some districts where people are doing some remote learning with this company. And I mean, it's just, I wanted to shake my head every time. And it turns out that by the end of the school year, I was basically working at home anyway. And so half of my day would be just watching videos with my daughter, who was in 5th grade at the time. My son was in 7th grade at the time. My oldest got through it no problem. But I would sit there and actually help them and then reteach them stuff if we needed to, especially in math. Some of the math ones were hard for them to comprehend. And then I would actually sit there and watch them help and take the test with them. And if there was something we didn't know, there was a sort of a back channel way to basically cheat. And I'm not, you know, I don't think any of my kids' teachers are watching this because they went back to their regular school system anyway, so it doesn't really matter at this point.
Well, if they're learning at home, all they got to do is just Google the answer.
Yeah, well,
it's not like a teacher's looking over your shoulder.
There was a another site, I can't remember the name of it, but there was an online kind of, it's a homework helper type site. And you could basically copy and paste the question from the quiz into this search engine and find, it was Brainly. Yeah, that's the name of it. And I actually started I logged on and created an account on Brainly and actually started helping these kids explain some of these answers to the questions that they were having in the quiz. Not just giving an answer, but explaining the concept, especially in math. And you know, almost got a couple of awards and little stars on the Brainly site, but it's probably another site that hasn't gone. And people would type in like, "Oh, this is Edge 2020." Like that was the code word for like, this is on the quiz, and here's the answer.
Right. So you were doing the job of the teacher at that point, right?
Right. Yeah. And it was kind of the early form of ChatGPT. Like this was what people did in the days of the pandemic. Yeah. And again, as a parent, I was just trying to get through this. And so when the schools reopened, then it got a little better. But you know, obviously there's recognition that learning didn't happen, and there seemed like there was such potential for remote learning and sort of this kind of concept. But I think after everybody's experience, especially with the way that they were teaching, and you know, unfortunately, teachers didn't know a lot about how to use Zoom, so there were a lot of examples of people getting on Zoom, and then regular people that somehow found they were hacking into some of these meetings, and
right.
There was no privacy, there was no passwords. It was pretty bad.
Yeah,
early on.
I can chime in on this real quick. When I heard that they were you know, when the schools were switching to Zoom, I knew right away that wasn't going to work out at all. I mean, because you got to think about it. These are kids, right? When you're home, right? And a perfect example is, you know, if you're in middle school or high school, what's the best part of a snow day?
It's not doing anything.
Not going into school.
Not going into school,
right? Because
right.
part of school is going there, sitting at your desk, listening to a teacher, you know, give their lecture and teaching and stuff. That was school. So now you go ahead and tell kids, yeah, well, you know, just zoom into the lesson at home. Well, it's not really the same.
Right.
And I totally agree, you know, like looking at the articles that we have here, yeah, students lost 1/3 of a school year to pandemic. Yeah, I mean, who would have,
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised at all.
I'm not surprised it's not bigger. I mean, you know, 1/3 is actually not bad.
I'm sure it is a lot more, actually. They're probably undercounting. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, I think our school district probably, you know, I don't know if they've reported the test scores, but I think that they're definitely probably down in a lot of categories, and a lot dependent on the grades. I think my youngest daughter developed some anxiety issues. I mean, she was in 5th grade, and you know, my older son was fine, and my oldest daughter was okay. She got through it because I think emotionally and developmentally they were at a point where they could deal with it. Younger kids, I think, didn't know any better, or you know, I don't know. I think the jury's still out probably on what. I mean, this is going to go on for, years as they
Right.
determine, how bad some of these things were. And again, maybe there was nothing else they could do. I mean, but at least, recognize, and again, God forbid this happens again. And I don't think it's going to, I mean, if we do end up with another type of pandemic type situation, I'm pretty sure most school districts will do something different than just immediately think, oh, technology is the answer. We'll just Zoom everybody in. And,
I mean, they probably could have had classes outdoors. I mean, not in the snow, but you know what I mean? I don't know.
yeah. So, they did go. When they reopened the school, there were still people wearing masks, and I think masks were semi-optional at the point. But I remember picking my kids up or dropping them off at one point, and there was a gym class going on. And the gym class, obviously, they didn't want to. You couldn't exert any sort of exercise and sweat, because remember how all the gyms were closed too and things like that.
Yeah.
So the gym class was basically, they had bunches of students socially distanced walking around the track like really slowly, and you couldn't like walk together. You had to walk in your own little personal pod. And then they started doing some classes outdoor in this spring, but you were still like 12 feet away from everybody. I was like,
yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like the whole, the reason why, we acted like this, right? And when I say we acted like this, I mean schools, right? The reason why schools did this, right?
Yeah.
Is because, you had a novel virus that's running around, and we didn't know much about it at the time.
Right.
And I think today, right, we know a lot more about it, and we can kind of make better decisions around, how to teach our kids.
Right.
And I think if anything, this has just taught us, don't do Zoom. Don't do the Zoom classes at home.
Right.
Without
I think
a
that
teacher or someone, right?
I think the issue got politicized too early too. I mean, depending on what side of the aisle you're on, either it was a genius decision or the worst decision in the world. And I always try to take a look at the data. What does the data say? What does the data say?
Right.
And early on, it said that the kids were not being affected by this at all. Or the symptoms were light, the symptoms were mild. There are always going to be outliers in any sort of data. This is what I learned in my Edgenuity online. I was the valedictorian of the 5th and 7th grade that year. Because we started talking about statistics in some of the math classes, and they said this is what an outlier is. It's that one case where it doesn't fall into a normal curve, and so every time I tried to bring this up with the school officials that we were talking to, again, I wasn't a political activist by any means, but I would see the data for the state, and I would see the data for our town, and would say to them like, there's the chances of someone getting sick and being seriously harmed or even killed by this from a student perspective is extremely minuscule low. And then someone would always pop up on a message board or something and go, well, there's this one kid in Arizona who died. And I was like, well, we're in central Massachusetts. Like, there's no way. And I even calculated the percentage of the chance that anybody in our school was going to get seriously ill from this. And the numbers are really low. But again, people would rather react and be emotional than looking at numbers and understanding what percentages and statistics means, which means we need to teach better math in school. And we keep doing less and less of the actual math and science and, some of these things. Although don't get me started on science.
Actually, Keith, it's all about the science. Huh?
It's science as a quote science science is now a religion for some people, which it shouldn't be. It should just be like observe and use data and be rational about that stuff. So I started thinking I want to jump on and see, because this isn't just about schools I want to talk about, but I wanted to also then see, well, how did the pandemic affect the people at work? And, we get into the issues of Zoom fatigue. And, that was a big thing where people were just kind of sick and tired of being on a Zoom meeting. And we still live in an environment with some of these hybrid work things where we do have a lot of Zoom meetings and still talk about with people that are working remotely. But some of the other technology, I want to bring up the story about the digital workplace, the New York Times Magazine one.
Gotcha. I got it.
Okay. Right. So this was an interview with a book author, with Cal Newport. And basically the idea of, I love this lead. Email, instant messaging, remote meeting apps, workflow and project management software, and so on can feel like so many buckets with holes in the bottom, maddeningly inadequate to the task of keeping us from drowning in work. This is sort of a sore point with me as well. We tend to create software or adopt software to replace something that we're annoyed with, and it never really does replace something. Instead, it just adds another bucket.
Right.
And with, so we have email, we have instant messaging, we have Microsoft Teams collaboration software, we have Slack. Sorry, we have so many of these tools, in this article talks about how the more and more we do this, the less and less work is actually getting done. And do you feel that way sometimes at work where someone, like there was a suggestion, and I don't want to, there was another suggestion to add and adopt another collaboration platform, and in my head I was like, please no, please don't make me do this.
Well, here, I'd ask you this, Keith. Have you ever seen the movie WALL-E?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a limit. There's got to be a limit to how much we should involve tech in the working environment, right? Because eventually you just become so detached from, the real world, honestly. If we're just all working at home, sitting at our desks at our home on Zoom or, on our laptops, just plugged in all the time.
Right.
I think you're going to lose a big chunk of productivity in your job, because there is something to be said about working in person, like seeing people in person, right? The social interactions with your peers and coworkers. So, I definitely do think there should be some sort of line or limit to what we use in work.
Yeah, and again, we talk about, to bring back the school analogy, where we talk about how bad it is for kids to be looking at screens all day. And that's usually in reference to either a kid on his phone or an iPad, just kind of, doing this. I watch my daughter with her phone, and she just sits there at the kitchen table, or, and just does this all day, just, it's scanning her.
It's horrible for your neck too, by the way.
I'm trying to watch some TV with my son, and he doesn't watch the TV. He just sort of like listens to it while he's on the phone. And some people would say, well, he's multitasking. It's like, well, so no, because some of these TV shows, it's visual in addition to audio. So some of the best jokes on a TV show are visual jokes. And I usually have to tell him, like, oh, are you watching? Because this is really funny. And I don't know. I just think getting back to the collaboration thing, it's like whenever one of these new platforms is being introduced, the old platform never really gets replaced, because there are people that were like, well, I'm never going to use that one. I'm going to use email and a spreadsheet, and that's all I need. And
right.
It's like, well, no, you have to now use this thing where you click and drag and click and drag and click and drag. I was like, oh boy, I'm really hoping that we do not have to use that. So that leads me to sort of my next kind of thing that I want to talk with you about, is that the Gallup thing. Bring up the article from The Hill. And this was a Gallup survey that says that fewer Americans are now actively engaged at work. So they asked questions about engagement rates at work, and I don't know necessarily what engagement means. They don't really explain that. It's just they're just talking about the numbers. Fully engaged. I mean, does it mean like you're happy at work, or you're participating at work? You feel like you're doing work?
Yeah.
But the numbers are down again, and I don't know if this is like the post-pandemic blues that people are having, but I can sense that with some people not necessarily here, but I can get a sense of, there's still sort of we're still in that mode of
there's still a cloud lingering over, right? Around the workplace and stuff like that. Right.
And I'm not sure if this is every workplace, if this is specific to, knowledge workers in an office setting, or, if you're out at a grocery store, do you feel like the grocery workers are engaged, not engaged?
Oh, I think that's, grocery stores. I think it's it's weird. It's like nothing has happened to grocery stores.
What do you mean?
I shop at Market Basket, so it's busy 24/7.
Yeah.
Nonstop. Everybody's, it kind of feels like they're all stuck. All the workers and stuff. Market, the grocery stores in general, just stuck in like a time capsule. Like nothing happened. Nothing happened, right?
Well, until they replace all the cashiers with self-checkout.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess that's the reason why, because at a grocery store, and especially the one I go to, right, you can't really work from home in those grocery stores when you need to stock shelves, right? So, it's like one of those necessity jobs.
Yeah, in fact, there's a local Target, and they've most of the time when I go there now, there's only one cashier human, and everybody else is just waiting in line at the self-checkout.
It's sad. It's honestly, I think it's
and
just
somehow, and now I've become a worker for Target.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Without getting paid for it. Like, it's genius on their part, but unfair to the rest of the workers.
Right.
All right. So this leads me. So there's a whole theme around this, Chris.
Okay.
There's a method to my madness because I know you're going to react to this one. So
I can't wait.
So because there's a disengagement, I think companies are exploring new ways to try to get people to engage at work or become more than the Zoom fatigue. There was another story that I didn't bring up, but basically there was a new. Let me just read this one. There's a new study suggesting that human brains need in-person interaction, and so
no kidding.
Yeah, this was the duh moment.
Wow, I don't even have a doctorate degree or anything. Of course, we need social interaction.
All right, so you have scientific evidence here now. Are you ready to hear this evidence?
Did it just come out? Did this evidence?
Yeah. Or at least the story was recent, within the last month or so.
Okay.
All right. So the researchers, they took 62 mother-child pairs. So they took a mother and a child. And so they hooked them up to an encephalogram, which I think I just...
Wait, do you have the article on a link?
I don't. I didn't give you this one.
All right, that's all right. We'll link it in the description.
I totally botched the pronunciation of that. Basically, they hooked up wires to people's brains, and so they measured brain activity. Okay. So they measured their brain activity when they were talking in person, and then they did the same thing, but then through a remote video chat. And the researchers found that participants' brains were more synchronized when they were in each other's presence, but did not do so when they were chatting through a screen. Researchers said they were able to observe 9 important cross-brain links between participants during the in-person conversation, compared to only 1 link during the virtual chat. Like, that's it.
Yeah,
Boom.
there you go.
Boom.
There you have it.
Like,
it's legit now
because
it's on science.
It's on science and it's on paper. All right. So this leads me to the next one. So bring up so I think what offices are going to do if as they try to get people to come back to work, we're like, well, what can we do? We don't want to go back to the way things were. We want to try to keep people engaged. We want to keep some hybrid workers.
Well, hold on.
So let's just tear out the office and create this new thing, which you're going to pop up.
Wait,
ready?
so yeah, hold on, real quick. Let me just pause there for a second. What do you mean by they don't want it to go back to the way it was before, like fully full time? Is that?
Because I think that they realize that that's not tenable. That's not.
I mean, it was
possible.
It was for, I don't know, 50, 100
yeah, I know.
years.
Well, I know. We can't go back to the 1950s.
Well, it was like I said earlier. I think I mentioned to you. It's like, all right, give a toddler a piece of candy.
Okay,
he's gonna love it. Oh, right, he's gonna love it.
Toddlers love candy.
Right now, take the candy away. What happens?
They start crying.
Yeah, and I think that's what's gonna happen now. Is we're going to have all the toddlers start crying.
So companies are now taking they're taking away the candy, but then they're
taking away the candy.
They're giving them a vegetable, which probably doesn't help. You have to replace the candy. You have to give them candy, but in a different location.
Vegetables are yucky.
You have to give them a different piece of candy. You have to give them something that is still good for them, but they might enjoy.
Right.
So piece of bread? I don't know.
So is this the Meta?
This is the Logitech Telepresence video booth.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So this is now. So instead of trying to figure out, or maybe go, bring people back in the office. Now we're going to create these little video booths in which people are going to. It looks like a little couch with a background, and they.
This is great.
The image if you scroll up a little, the image on the right, it looks like. This looks like the trickery that they do at the Haunted Mansion, where they project an image, and this is the video camera, but then they flash it on an angled mirror, and then that image pops up. And so, instead of trying to fix the problem or get rid of these calls, they're going to do you're going to do a video chat call with a ghost.
Right. Well, hey,
I'm sorry. That's not even the goofiest thing we're going to talk about today.
Well, if it's let's frame it this way, right? If you're some corporate company, right? You're some corporate company.
Let's call it Company X.
Company X, right? You have a decision to make with your budget. You need to spend X amount of money on these booths, or the free option is to just have people come back into work X amount of times a week. Right. I don't know, which one would you pick? If you're a CEO of, I think I would just kind of work with your employees to kind of bring them back in on a more regular basis instead of, because Keith, you know this. These aren't going to be cheap. This is new revolutionary tech.
And you've got to get some IT guys to then connect these and make sure that there's probably a computer in there that they have to connect to.
That's got to be a lot. Did they give a price at all?
No. Because I don't think this is I don't know if this is officially available or if this is a concept. They're still working on it.
It's probably just a concept. That would easily go for $5,000-$10,000. Because I'll tell you what, soundproofing material is not cheap.
There was another article that I forgot to give you, Chris, about where people were complaining about people that are returning to the workplace are now complaining that it's too loud.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
It's like,
I haven't heard about that.
Yeah, the anecdote that they used was in a hair salon, which is really kind of the worst idea. I mean, it's the worst anecdote because when you get your hair cut, which I need a haircut.
Sure.
So, but the barbershop or the haircut, that's the best. It's always going to be noisy. But they're saying that people that are going back to work and that have been used to a quiet environment in their home, and it's like, well, I want to visit that home because, I've got dogs and kids. It's always noisy. And again, you could, but instead, they want to complain about this to their office managers instead of just put a pair of headphones on.
Right.
If you're bothered by the person next to you, whether it's they're on the phone or if they're chewing loudly for their lunch, or something else that's annoying, put the headphones on. I worked at an office. This was not here. I worked at an office where there was someone 2 cubes away, and they were customer service. So they were constantly answering the phone. It was like that lady in Office Space. It was like, corporate accounts payable, please hold. Like, it was like that lady, only she had a cough, and she coughed a lot. And we kept saying, like, can I get you a throat lozenge? Can I get you a cough drop? And at some point, I just took my headphones, plugged into Spotify. I didn't even listen to music sometimes. I just, put them on just to try to drown out that noise. I didn't complain to my manager about, this person. It's like, just deal with it.
Well, I mean,
All right. But that's not the goofiest thing we're going to talk about. The goofiest thing that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I think I have it up.
Bring up the other video. So there was all this collaboration software and a lot of things that happened during the pandemic were like, all right, well, people are sick of Zoom meetings. So let's go into the world of virtual reality and virtual workplaces and make it more like a video game. And
you're talking about Meta.
This is Meta, and this was their Horizon workrooms for their virtual reality. So someone would put on a virtual headset, I think, at some point.
I mean, we can just play it because I think it's a demo.
Yeah, this is...
All right, here we go.
People, and you get to walk around virtual things. Microsoft has a new tool called Microsoft Mesh that's looking to do a similar thing with holographic avatars in AR and VR. But where Facebook's Horizon Workrooms gets a lot weirder and more interesting is that it takes your computer with you and your desk.
Okay, but...
So when I did the demo, I had to scan my desk as part of the
yeah, that's like way too much work for me already.
I mean, what's better than working with your coworkers in person? Just work with them in a virtual environment. That's
I think most workers
better.
most knowledge workers are never going to want to put these headphones and headsets on. I mean, imagine if I had to wear if I had to wear these headphones all day long. It would be annoying, right?
Oh,
and now imagine me putting this a virtual reality headset on and sitting in a cube. Then that's really Orwellian at that point.
I mean, this is just sad. I
was doing Google Doc stuff.
Like, I know a lot of people will make the comparison to like WALL-E,
That's the thing
right?
about
I
VR
mean,
right now.
we're all just sitting on a
we're all
couch.
just sitting on
And
a floating pod.
Yeah, I don't want that future.
Diving into this
Right.
virtual universe.
I don't think anybody
why
wants
can't
that
we think
future.
of
Maybe with the
technical-
robot. Maybe the robot part, but not the.
Yeah,
And that one isn't even the goofy. I mean, you know, I saw demos of ones where it was like you were playing a video game and you had to use a joystick to walk to a virtual lounge or a conference room and then sit down, and then you would then zoom in for the meeting, and then, you know, you could see everybody and you could do your avatar thing.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I lived through Second Life and we all saw how bad that was. It's like, please do not bring that back.
At some point, this has to be looked at as a little bit counterproductive. You know what I mean? Because, like, again, the easy alternative should just be meet in person,
Right.
Instead of having you buy this VR headset, okay, now you got to sign for an account, then you got to figure out how to use and operate it. And it's like, well, if you just met in person, it doesn't really take that much to it other than making the effort. But I don't think, going on a little tangent,
Yeah.
I don't think the metaverse Facebook application is really going to get any legs at all. I mean, we're already starting to see it, right? I mean, Meta laid off X amount of employees. They had that debut, I can't remember exactly where, it was at this conference, right? And only a couple people showed up in the actual metaverse. I remember you showed me that.
Yeah. We talked about that on one of our earlier episodes.
And I'm just thinking, like, I think we should stop. Just stop, go back to the drawing board, maybe make something more useful for
There are
for people,
some interesting niche applications.
Niche,
and
absolutely
use
niche.
cases for virtual reality. And I've talked to a bunch of people that have said things like training someone how to fix a
Absolutely.
wind turbine, a giant, you know, solar or, you know, wind power thing, training how to fix that on the ground so that when they, instead of sending them up there and
Right.
then training them up there, you know, showing, you know, doing a thing where if you're wearing the glasses and you don't know exactly what to fix on an engine, having someone remote in and then tell the person,
Right.
you know, so the virtual surgery where, you know, you have a surgeon and you might not know how to do something exactly, but then you have, you know, the real expert on the phone who's in Boston and you're in Europe type of a thing.
Right.
That I can see.
Right. So more educational applications, right?
Educational, training,
applications,
customer
tutorials.
service, things like that. But
No, absolutely. Like that would be easy market.
you know, but
to-
if it's 5 members of the marketing team trying to come up with a new ad campaign, like, do you really need this? Probably.
it's just
Probably
honestly,
not.
it's just. I mean, the whole birth with the meta, right? The metaverse is like, you know, just it's Facebook trying to get to that next level. Like,
Well,
what's the next level of Facebook? What more could they do?
I still don't understand
Right.
why Facebook bought that company anyway.
yeah.
You know, I'm still trying to figure out, like, because again, at the time, Facebook was just like, hey, here's a picture of my kids and they're ice skating, and it was like.
I mean, when you got millions and millions of dollars just laying around, you got to do something with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, the whole metaverse idea was based off of this science fiction book called Snow Crash, and everyone was thinking, like, you know, or they've seen Ready Player One. That's more of a more modern example of this. It's like it's virtual gaming and you know, and then someone's like, well, we can't just talk about video games. So it's like, okay, well, let's bring education in and maybe we'll teach some kids virtually, and you know, we see how that went. And so now it's like, okay, well, all right, well, now we'll use it at work and we'll train people on it. It's like something's got to stick at something. Some things are sticking, but not as a general purpose sort of type of thing. Are there any other technologies that you experienced during the pandemic, Chris, that maybe we didn't talk about? You know, I was freelancing during most of the pandemic. So basically I was in a lot of Zoom meetings and things like that, but that was it. Like other than that, I still used, you know, regular tools to write articles and do things like that. And
No,
there was nothing else that I can recall that maybe was brought up other than like video conferencing and then some of the educational stuff.
Yeah, I mean, other than Zoom, that was pretty much it. I mean, if you had if you had stock in Zoom at that time, you made out pretty well.
Right.
But no, it was all Zoom. It was all Zoom.
And even Zoom, like obviously there's still Zoom meetings that are going on, but Zoom tried to add applications and other things within the platform and Zoom games, and they've done things like that. Like you and I have never played a Zoom game.
It's all novelty. It came and it went. And that's it. I don't know. Maybe
it's a generational thing. Maybe the younger generation likes that stuff because they're on screens all the time. But sometimes I just want to yell out, "Go outside,
touch some grass,
but don't play on my yard. Go on someone else's yard." All right, I think we're out of time, Chris. I think we're out of gas.
All right, good.
All right, thanks, Chris. And thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe the video. Give us some comments if we missed anything in this discussion of some pandemic tools. If there was a tool that you liked, let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. New videos every week on Today in Tech.